Deepest thanks to the Great Courses Plus for sponsoring this episode. More on them in a moment, and a heartfelt shout out to Emperor Tigerstar on YouTube. His masterful animations of historical war maps are truly peerless. If you haven't yet, do explore his channel. He joins us today, lending his impressive southern accent to read from primary sources, while I shall return the favor in his latest video. If one were to inquire as to the costliest conflict in American history, how would you respond? Many might instinctively point to the Second World War or perhaps Vietnam, yet this is a common misconception. The American Civil War remains, even now, the bloodiest struggle in the nation's history. Indeed, until roughly half a century ago, the casualties of the Civil War exceeded those of all other American wars combined. But why was this the case in an era devoid of automatic weaponry, tanks, or high explosives? I am Griffin Johnson, the armchair historian, and today we shall examine precisely what rendered the American Civil War so exceptionally lethal. First, one must recognize that sickness claimed far more lives than the steel of the enemy. Approximately 67% of all Civil War fatalities resulted from infectious diseases such as measles, dysentery, and smallpox. This was the inevitable consequence of congregating vast numbers of men from disparate regions into cramped quarters, exacerbated by a dire lack of sanitation and fresh water. This attrition had profound tactical implications. At the Battle of Chancellorsville, for instance, 5,000 Confederate soldiers were rendered unfit for duty due to a smallpox outbreak. While disease is a grim certainty in any conflict, the combat of the Civil War was uniquely devastating for several reasons. Primary among these was the ubiquitous use of the infamous Minié ball, named for its creator, the French officer Claude-Étienne Minié. Prior to its advent, rifles were agonizingly slow to reload, as the ammunition had to fit tightly within the barrel to catch the rifling. Minié revolutionized this by designing a hollow, conical bullet that fit loosely during loading. Upon firing, the projectile's cavity expanded, gripping the grooves and granting the bullet a spin that dramatically enhanced both accuracy and reload speed. However, the round was heavy and slow, inflicting horrific trauma. Bones hit by a Minié ball did not merely break. They shattered, necessitating amputation in countless cases. Rifled muskets were not the only agents of slaughter. The most formidable assets in the arsenals of both North and South were the field artillery. Improvements in 19th century technology rendered these cannons more precise and deadly than ever before. Explosive shells could obliterate entire platoons with a direct hit, and the introduction of rifled pieces, such as the Parrott gun, made such precision commonplace. Sergeant Jonathan Stowe of the 15th Massachusetts Infantry recounted the horror. "What sights I have seen! Shells fly past me every few seconds, carrying away branches from trees and scattering limbs around. I do sincerely hope that I shall not be wounded again." Perhaps the most significant factor in this carnage, however, was the continued reliance on linear tactics. Such accurate weaponry proved catastrophic against the static formations employed on the battlefield. Most commanders had been educated at West Point. Indeed, every major engagement featured at least one army led by a West Point graduate, including figures like Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee. Because the Academy's doctrine emphasized Napoleonic direct approach tactics, both sides deployed in rigid lines, suffering staggering losses as a result. This was further compounded by the appointment of political generals with no prior military experience. Yet, in open terrain, there was often no perceived alternative. When cover was available, it was utilized. At Antietam, 500 Confederates concealed behind trees and stone walls successfully delayed several Union brigades at what would become known as Burnside's Bridge. The quintessential testament to this lethality was Pickett's charge during the Battle of Gettysburg. Under Robert E. Lee's orders, 12,500 Confederate infantrymen advanced across a mile of open ground, subjected to a harrowing gauntlet of Union rifle and artillery fire. Though a few reached the Union lines, the assault was repulsed with over 6,000 casualties. The range of the rifled muskets ensured Lee's men were decimated long before they closed the distance. Even before the march began, they endured a bombardment so intense that historian Craig Simons suggests the barrage at Gettysburg may have been the loudest man-made sound on the continent until the atomic bomb. Colonel Joseph Mayo of the 3rd Virginia Infantry described the chaos. First there was an explosion on the top of the tree, and in a second there was another, followed by piercing shrieks. Company F had suffered terribly. Towards the war's conclusion, the futility of open-field combat was finally acknowledged. Both sides began to adopt static defensive positions and elaborate breastworks, most notably during the Siege of Petersburg, which also saw the limited debut of the Gatling gun. By the time the First World War arrived 50 years later, the American Civil War was recognized as the bridge between eras, a foreshadowing of trench warfare and the painful transition from close-order formations to the necessity of cover. This lesson, however, was purchased at the cost of 620,000 lives. 8% of American males perished. 1 in 4 soldiers never returned home. To delve deeper into the complexities of this conflict, I highly recommend Professor Gary Gallagher's lectures on the Great Courses Plus. This on-demand service offers a vast library of over 10,000 lectures from Ivy League experts spanning history, science, and philosophy. I recently finished Robert Wiener's The Long 19th Century, an invaluable resource for understanding the Victorian era. You can begin your free trial today at thegreatcoursesplus.com/thearmchairhistorian. Finally, do not forget to visit Emperor Tigerstar's channel. My thanks to my general staff on Patreon and our dedicated production team. I shall see you next time to discuss the performance of the Italian army during World War II.